what we came here to do is talk about the MVP. Okay. So,
Mhm.
who is your MVP for the 2023-2024 NBA regular season?
Well, I will say as we're approaching, the very final days, well, I guess final day we're approaching. It seems like it's been really narrowed down to three players in this running. And I think those players are Nikola Jokic, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and Luka Doncic. And, I'm looking at these teams as well. And at least for the MVP, I'm like, to give you an example, in 2019, James Harden, great season, right? Started the year off sluggish though a little bit, and his team was not great. And so that hurt him in his case to win MVP, and Giannis ended up getting it. And I was a firm believer that Giannis did deserve it that year. Like I thought he was the deserving the winner because it's from game 1 to game 82. The team success is there. Like he's playing at a high level, everything of that nature. And he's having to carry maybe a load on his back as well that maybe a lot of other guys aren't asked to do. So with all that being said, I think that, you know, Luca has had a great year, but the first half of that year is a little bit reminiscent, not quite as bad, but a little bit reminiscent of that James Harden 2019 season. So I do have to knock him off. He is not my MVP. And so really that leaves Jokic and Shea. And it's a tough decision to make, but this is why I gave Shea the Clutch Player of the Year award as well. It's
Mhm.
partially a reason because Nikola Jokic is my MVP.
I knew it. I knew it.
I think that's a fair. That's like a fair. What would it be?
Pick.
Maybe like it might. Yeah, like a little
Yeah.
extra award or something like that. But just because like what Jokic has had to do this year. First of all, Jamal Murray's missed a lot of time again this year. Like he's had to do it without him. And how many games has whether it's Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, like they've missed a lot of games but or not a lot of games, but they've missed like not a whole lot of games. But the games that they've missed, it's been like usually one or the other playing. Look at their whole bench. Like it seems like their whole bench is a completely new unit, and Jokic just kind of had to be like the mainstay there, keeping him afloat. Like he's up there near the top of the league in double doubles. I think only behind like Sabonis or something. Obviously up there near the top of the league in triple doubles as well. And I think overall, like he's just playing really efficient basketball. I think it's just something you can't top from start to finish. Like they've been up there near the top. Now you could also say the same thing about like, well, SGA's been up there as well, and he's scoring a little better, and like you could maybe say like defensively and stuff like that. But I also think Jokic is an underrated defender. I think it's just that people aren't going to really give him that credit because he's a little slow, but he has great hands, I think. But the point is like the Thunder have a lot of guys, I think, that more so surround him more so than the Denver Nuggets surrounding Jokic. I think that they have better players, the Nuggets, of course, but I think that when injuries piled up, like when Jamal Murray was out, or if there were games where if Aaron Gordon didn't play, or Michael Porter Jr. didn't play, or KCP didn't play, whatever it might be, like then you're asking a lot of guys who maybe are in the same mold as those Thunder players, but a lot of those guys are probably further down the Thunder's bench if they're on that team. Like, let's face it. So, because of that, I think Jokic is the MVP.
I love it. I love that pick. Now here's my spiel. Okay, hear me out. Okay, hear me out on my spiel, and then we can go back and forth after that. So look, to be honest, bro, like I think I say this every year, but it's like this is probably one of the most competitive MVP races I've seen in a long time. But I also said this last year, so I'm saying it this year again. But check it out. So, in my opinion, it's only a 3-man race, but I could totally understand someone arguing for a 5-man race. I mean, Giannis, second seed, second in the NBA for most points per game, leading the league in points per game. Jason Tatum, best player, best team. The Celtics have won 79% of their games when he's on the court. But
I don't know if I could argue for Tatum, but go ahead.
okay, no, I wouldn't argue for Tatum, but I'm just saying, like, if someone argued that, like, I wouldn't be like, okay, like, I wouldn't be like, no, you're wrong. Like, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I think it's a 3-man race between, like how we said, Luka, Shea, and Jokic, but I can understand an argument of a 5-man race if you include Giannis and Tatum because of what they've done. But I think, and here's what I'm going to say: because I don't like being wrong. Okay, so I think Jokic will win. I think the NBA, based on how they give the awards and based on how they pick, I think Jokic will win. But my pick for MVP is Shea. Right now, he's averaging 30 points per game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, which is leading the league in steals, 56% from the field, which is absurd for a 6'6" player. He's shooting 36% from the 3-point line, 87% from the free throw line. And for a player like Shea, what you really have to look at is true shooting percentage. And for those out there that don't know what true shooting percentage is, it just takes field goal percentage into account, 3-point percentage into account, and free throw percentage to account. Shea is shooting 63.9 true shooting percentage, which again is just absolutely absurd. The Thunder have overall won their minutes with Shea on the court, and Shea really impacts both ends of the court, bro. I mean, he's tied for second most points in the league at 30.4. He generates so much offense, not only for himself with, as like I said, second most leading scorer in the league, but also for others with his driving and kicking. Shea's going to finish this season, bro, with having at least 50 30-point games. In the last 2 decades, bro, there's only been 2 other players to ever do that. There was Kobe Bryant in the 05-06 season and James Harden in that 2018-2019 season. And then on the defensive end, if we look at that end, he leads the league in steals, and he's been on a team that's been top 5 defensively all season long. He has absolutely no problem switching onto bigger players. He's not like it's not like when he gets switched onto a quicker player, he's a liability. It's not like when he gets switched onto a bigger player, he's a liability. He's tied for second in the league for most contested 3-pointers this season. He off and then I mean that's a defensive wise, but let's get a little bit more to offensive because that's where the bulk of his game is at. He currently right now leads the league in drives per game at 23.6, and almost all of those drives, Garrett, are either him getting a bucket, him getting an and one, or him driving and kicking to one of his 3-point shooters. And mind you, the Oklahoma City Thunder are top of the league in 3-point shooting percentage. They don't shoot many, but still, when they shoot them, they go in. So they shoot smart shots. He's also right now number 1 in the league for scoring frequency in the isolation. Bro, listen to this right here. 53% of the time that he is in isolations, he is getting a bucket. That is an absurd stat. He's also number 1 in the league for and 1 percentages on those ISOs. He's also been extremely clutch, right? In the clutch time, you gave him the Clutch Player of the Year award for the reasons you stated, right? In the clutch, 57% from the field in the clutch for a record of 22-11. But if all those stats were not enough for you, Garrett, here, check this out, because this right here has to sway you and everyone else out there, okay? So he averages the least amount of turnovers than Jokic and Luka. So Luka's averaging 4 turnovers per game. Jokic is averaging three turnovers per game. And Shea's averaging 2.2 turnovers per game. Check this out right here. This is the lowest amount of turnovers per game in NBA history for a player who's scoring at least 30 points per game or more. Michael Jordan is the only other player to do that. He did that in 91, 92, and 96 with 2.4 turnovers per game. And guess what? He won MVP all 3 of those seasons. So Shea should as well. But if you want to, get away from the stats a little bit, I know sometimes the stats is, overbearing. The fan base that I have for this show, we real hoopers. So sometimes we don't even look at the stats. We're looking at the eye test. If you want to look at the eye test, this man has legitimately no holes in his game. He can do literally everything on the court from everywhere on the court, and he's also got unlimited counters. Like if you want him on the fast break, he can do that. You want him to stop and pop, he can do that. He can step back and hit a 3. He's still a mid-range assassin. He can operate out of the post. And in my opinion, bro, he's also had the biggest impact on his team compared to Luka and Jokic. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, this might sound crazy, but they would be a play-in team without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're 2-5 without Shai right now. Jokic, the Nuggets are 5-8 without Jokic. The Mavs are 4-7 without Luka. And the biggest thing of all, bro, and this is where my spiel stops. I know this kind of long, but the biggest thing of all, bro, is that he has been the leader and the best player on the team that's just number one in the West right now. He's kept them up there, exceeded expectations. And honestly, bro, he's just my guy. And he has the best Instagram captions. So he, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, is the MVP. But I do not think that the NBA will give it to him. Talk to me.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like I said, Shea for me, it's so tough because like I will say right now, I think like as a player, Luca is a better player than Shea. But maybe on this year's MVP ladder, like I could definitely see Shea being above Luca, especially because their team is better. But it's when it comes to the MVP of Jokic, like for me, it's like not only that, like maybe the games that he's had to play with like a bunch of like really new players or players that weren't a part of this core last year, but like this is a guy who's ranked fifth in points on the year. He's third in rebounds on the year. He's second in assists on the year, and he's first in plus minus on the year. He's the only player in the league that's top 5 in all those categories. And like the rarity of that is pretty insane because obviously, like, I mean, I'm a firm believer, even like my guy behind me, D Rose, right? I'm one to say he definitely deserved his MVP because, I mean, they were the best record in the league and he was the only player top 10 in the league in points and assists. Only player. We got a guy who's top 5 in points, rebounds, assists, and he's first in plus minus in the whole league as well. And his true shooting percentage for this is another one to add to you. His true shooting percentage in the clutch this year would rank 6 all time among all seasons ever. And do you know who's above him? Are players like Rudy Gobert, Daniel Gafford, Mitchell Robinson, Tyson Chandler, and Artis Gilmore. 5 players who, maybe Artis Gilmore a little bit outside just the basket, but a lot of those guys were just dish and dunk,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time. So we got a guy who's a 3-level scorer, scoring at efficiency, something we haven't ever seen before, and what he's doing with his team consistently throughout the whole year. I mean, like, I think the simplest way that it should be Jokic is the fact we're even having this conversation. It's like Jokic is 1-2 already. And part of the reason I think there is a conversation is because he has 1-2. And it's like,
Nah, bro. You got to give credit to Shea, bro.
but
The
no, no,
stats
no.
I just gave you and all that, and just the
Right.
eye test. There's no way you can like this. This has nothing to do with voter fatigue. Shea has a legit
Mm,
argument. This
it
has nothing to do with voter
it
fatigue, bro.
does to a degree because I did see last year
That's crazy.
when everyone did not want Jokic to win MVP. Even
Okay,
if Joel Embiid was a valid candidate and a valid winner, like people did not want Jokic to win MVP last year.
but we're not talking last year. We're talking right now.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid is not doing what Shea's doing, brother. Your GOAT, Michael Jordan? He won the MVP in 91, 92, 96 with averaging 2.4 turnovers per game, over 30 plus points per game. Shea's averaging less turnovers than them and more points in
Yeah.
all of those seasons. But how is he? You know what I'm saying? So I hear you, bro, but I cannot let that slide. There's no way. At least it's for me. For me, if you want to talk about casuals out there, maybe they're getting tired of the fatigue. But like, there's just no way that you're gonna tell me that the only reason we're having this conversation is because we're getting voter fatigue on
Well,
Jokic.
no. My point was that the fact that we are having the conversation right now, it's like if Jokic had not won an MVP, I think it would be maybe more balanced. Like there is to a degree, to some extent, like a little bit of sway because of that. Now, I'm not saying like that should sway anyone, and anyone who is swayed by that, I feel like you're kind of not picking the right way, at least.
Mhm.
But and you even brought up like Michael Jordan and stuff like that. But to be fair, like in Michael Jordan's day, of course it's a different era, and I don't think anybody in this era would put up the same numbers they did now in the 80s. But if there was someone in the 80s putting up 27 points, 12 and a half rebounds, and 9 assists a game, especially at the center, and he was top 5 in all those categories. I don't know if Michael Jordan would be winning MVP, and that's the GOAT, you know? So, like, I mean, you know what I mean? So,
I hear you, but you can make that literally the exact same argument for Shea and just say that he's putting up the similar numbers of Michael Jordan if you put him in that day and age, except averaging just less turnovers and
but I
still
don't know
top
if
of the
he
league.
my thing is I don't know if he would because it's a much slower game as well back then. So, if Jokic and
But
Shea
he
as
plays at
well.
his pace. You can't speed Shea up. You can't speed or slow Shea up. If he wants to play slow, he's going to play slow. If he wants to play fast, he'll play
Well,
fast.
I mean, and it's so hard because they're different eras, but I'm saying like the general pace of the league back then was a lot slower than it is today.
Yeah.
So that means less possessions are going to happen naturally. So the stats, like even if Jokic is averaging 27, 12, and 9, like I don't know exactly what it would be, but I'm sure to some degree it would be a little bit lower than it is
Mhm.
right now. And that's not a bad thing, but I think like that's kind of like what you have to base it on. So considering like Shea maybe is in a conversation with Michael Jordan when he won MVP, similar stats and everything like that. But it's like you also have to account that if he was in the 80s, it probably would be different stats as well. The efficiency is, of course, there. Of course, they're playing a different way too, because it's like the 3 point line is so much more prevalent. They didn't shoot the threes as much back then. So it's like you could even say the same argument, like someone back then to now, you know what I mean? But like, I guess we're not going to get into that today. But what I am saying though is that like I just think Jokic as a whole does more. I mean, like the discrepancy in points is about like a little over 3 points, but he's also averaging like 5 more rebounds, and it's like you would or 7 more rebounds, and you would think that because he's a big, but he's also averaging more assists. You know, he's also up there, like I said, leading the league in plus minus. Like it's one thing if you're like just I feel like if like the plus minus leader was like a random Celtics player, then it wouldn't feel the same way because it's like, well, they're not doing the most, but Jokic is doing the most on his team, and he's up there, and they're not even the best record in the league.